So to start all of our presentations here at Rural Roads, we like to acknowledge that Rural Roads University rests upon the traditional lands of the Kusepsum and Lekwungen families. There has been a long history of teaching and learning on these lands for centuries past, happening right now, present day, and will continue to happen long in the future. So we're so fortunate and respectful to be able to live, learn, and work on the traditional lands of the Kusepsum and Lekwungen families. We are here today to chat about learning and technology here at Rural Roads University. So we're so excited to explore the whole suite of learning and technology programs that we offer, from our Master of Arts in Learning and Technology, the Graduate Diploma in Learning and Technology, the Graduate Diploma in Technology Enhanced Learning and Design, and the Graduate Certificate in Instructional Design. So my name is Selena Kunar, and I'm an Education Advisor here at Rural Roads, and I'm so excited to be a part of this exploration today. We are also fortunate to have Dr. Elizabeth Childs, Professor and Program Head of all of these programs, with us to tell us a little bit more. Thanks so much for joining us, Elizabeth.
Well, thank you for having me, and thanks everyone for making time and all that you're doing for coming together to have a chance to talk through some of the programs. I would love to get a sense of where you're coming from, so maybe some of the interests or questions that you have. So please in the chat, if you could take a little minute and let us know where you might be logging in from, that would be wonderful. One of the things that we do at Rural Roads is you are not a number. You are a person with a name and a context and some really beautiful fall background behind you, some of you. And so we'd love to know a little bit more about you as we get going through the session. I'm coming in from, so Bart's from Kamloops, wonderful. I hear you have a little bit of dusting of snow there. We've managed to dodge that over here in Victoria. So we just have our nice, cool gray skies in the morning, and no snow in Delta. Excellent. North Island, you might have more snow. I know the mountain up island has some snow. Welcome from Vancouver and Toronto. And Alicia, excellent. Good to see you. And Oakville, wonderful. Thanks, everybody. Lovely to meet you. And Selena's welcome and acknowledgement of the traditional lands has a little bit of an extra twist for me in these spaces. I really work in my work to encourage and cultivate in myself and others a way that we can think about these virtual spaces and the protocols that we create. So when we think about the traditional lands and in working with our elders at Rural Roads, they talk a lot about how people would come from away and they'd ask permission, and there's protocols to come onto the land to learn and teach and feast and share. And then they would go and they would leave the land better than they found it. And so one of the ways that it really resonates with me is taking that up into these spaces, into these virtual lands that we are in the process of co-creating, and the protocols that are established within them, and how we deal and interact with each other in these spaces. And then most importantly, how we leave them so that people behind us will eventually, when they enter these spaces, raise their hands in thanks and gratitude for the good work that has been done. And so that's one of the ways that I connect to the lands acknowledgement. And it's certainly in my work, one of the ways that you'll see woven through the program that we increasingly encourage people to dive deeper into. So I'm really excited about today's webinar because usually we do a lot of talking about one particular area, but Selena has a wonderful agenda for us. So go through it, Selena.
Thanks so much, Elizabeth. Yes, I'm so glad we've all been welcomed and we've got to learn a little bit more about each other. So please keep popping things in the chat box. As Elizabeth has encouraged, we are always taking a peek in that chat box. We can already see we have folks from all over Canada, and we have some folks internationally who had registered as well. So hopefully more of us are in snow-free zones than snow-full zones at this time. But yes, so excited to have you. And if you'd like, feel free to pop in the chat box what program you are here to learn more about. As Elizabeth mentioned, we're going to do a highlight of the whole suite of learning and technology programs. But if there's something that you're particularly interested in, pop it in the chat box and we can always explore that and answer any questions that you have about that particular program as well. After we walk through the programs themselves, we're going to cruise through the application process to give you an idea of what that looks like, as well as the requirements for these programs as well. And then of course, we'll cap off with a question and conversations. So as we go, pop all your questions in the chat box. It's likely that we'll save them to answer at the end, but pop them in as things come up for you, and that'll make sure that we are answering all of the questions you have about any of our programs, the application process or requirements as well. So with that, we will dive right into talking a little bit about learning and technology.
Super, thanks, Lena. And it will be a bit of a whirlwind. So if it's going too fast or I'm going too fast, I get passionate, excited about it. Please just give me one of those symbols that says, slow down, Elizabeth. I'm trying to process. So the learning and technology programs are in the School of Education and Technology. And the slide that's up here is the vision slide for the school. So you can really get a sense of where the focus is for all the programs that are in the school. And you'll see the ones, of course, that are more prominent in the word cloud really do connect quite deeply to some of the design principles that you'll see in all of the learning and technology programs that I'll speak about today. So this notion of social, and the justice piece goes with that, collaborative, open, so open pedagogies, open educational practices, change makers, and that notion around design and innovative design. So if we can just jump ahead, Selena. Sorry, I'm used to having the, I'm used to finding the arrow. What I wanted to share here were the program design principles. So the MALAT program, which is the Master's in Learning and Technology, and the associated Diploma in Learning and Technology, they underwent a full program review over 7 years ago now. It's a 5-year review cycle. So in 2017, the program that resulted from that review launched. And so these are the design principles that informed that program. So openness, the use of open educational resources, open educational practices, this notion of collaboration and contribution, and the development of a digital mindset and a networked learning approach. And these came from not only the program review, but in extensive consultation with stakeholders. So these would be groups where different sectors hire graduates of the program or are already employing them. This is what they said. They said, we need, and this was 2016, they said we need people that can connect, that are networked, not just to get likes. That's not that kind of networking, that can network into their field, connect with others, learn with them, contribute back to them, collaborate with others in these virtual spaces, and then can do so with a lens towards open educational practices. So you'll see that as we go through some of it. You'll also see, of course, all the other bullets informed it. The little one at the bottom that I'll touch on, and every time I see this bullet, I think, oh, Elizabeth, please remember to update this slide, and I always forget. So those of you who were a part of Canadian Society of Training and Development, CSTD or ASTD, you'll know that it's not that anymore. It's the Institute for Performance and Learning. And so the programs are aligned with the body of knowledge of those professional organizations. And so many of our graduates have gone on, they've gotten their academic credential of a master's or a diploma, and then they've gone on and done their professional association accreditation as well. So you can just know that they ladder between the two. And that we work quite closely with I4PL to make sure that those bodies of knowledge are congruent. We'll jump to the next one, Luna, thank you. One of the things that I think is the reason I love this field in general, and have been in it for as long as I have, is that it isn't sector specific. So you will see that reflected in the people that choose these programs. We have people from a variety of sectors. Interestingly enough, initially when people see the School of Education and Technology, many people think K-12 education. We do have some from K-12 education. Predominantly that would be a lower portion of the groups that join into this program. So to give you a sense, we would have in the current group, we have folks from healthcare, we have folks from the transportation industry, we have folks from the Department of National Defense, training development officers, finance, corporate trainers, consultants, chief learning officers in their organization or institution. We have higher ed administrators as well as higher ed faculty, so people that are electrical trades professors, but their focus has been electrical trades, not learning. And now they're moving into deepening their practice around creating learning environments that also are digitally using the affordances of digital technology. So quite a wide range of sectors, some social not-for-profits. And it's really been interesting in the past few years to see the crossover also with the coding environment. So this is not, none of these programs are programs where you will learn software. That is not the intent of these programs. The intent is to really critically examine what we know about learning, what we know about technologies and the affordances of technologies as we work to create learning environments for our clients, our learners. So it's been interesting for me over the past few years to see that the interdisciplinary approach with some computer science folks being part of the group as well, which traditionally in the past we would not have seen. The focus of all of the programs at Royal Roads, if you haven't been there yet, Lisa will probably put this in the chat. Thank you, Lisa. We have a university-wide and institutional-wide learning, teaching, and research model. And you can think of that as the signature pedagogy for the institution. And it basically creates a baseline of what we believe about learning, about teaching, and about research in our context. And so it's an important, thank you, Lisa. It's a very important piece for you to take a look at because it will give you a sense of where is this institution situated, right? What kind of things do they value and do they believe in? Because that informs all of the program and underpins it. One of the pieces in there is a real focus on authentic and applied work. So this, and I'll speak to this a little bit more in the MALAT program specifically, but there is a real intentional focus on the assignments that you're doing for summative assessment in your courses and the activities you're doing along the way to be real world driven, to be authentic, and to be useful to you ideally tomorrow, the day after the assignment. So an example, a quick one of that is one of the first assignments that's assessed in a course at the beginning of the MALAT program. People are doing a briefing note. And so yes, they do have to do academic writing. Yes, they're still doing APA, but the structure of the work is a briefing note. And those briefing notes, if possible, are shared in our public briefing note compilation. So you can go in and see briefing notes from previous years around iPads in the classroom, around creating a financial model for e-learning in my organization. And so that many of the people have taken those briefs and then carried them forward within their organization, particular to a project that came up for them at the time. Evaluation. So why not start with the end in mind? People like to know how they're going to be assessed at a graduate level. It's always a bit of a mystery. It shouldn't be. So these are the different ways that we assess. We assess contribution, and the school has a contribution rubric that we use, where really the emphasis is on the quality. It's on building that conversation, extending the conversation, connecting with your fellow learners, with your larger networks, as opposed to the number of posts you put in a day. That's not the focus of it. We also really focus, and in the MALAT and the Diploma programs, one of the underpinning pieces you would have seen in the design philosophy is that notion of creating that personal network. And so in those programs, you will have a WordPress blog site that you spend time in your first course really conceptualizing as what is your digital identity and digital presence as a graduate student in these spaces. So you can imagine people that are chief learning officers, training and development managers in their company may or may not already have a presence in the WordPress world or in the public space, but they may not have really figured out what a research question is before. And so chances are they might not want to do that in a public setting. They might want to do that in a behind the firewall setting. So one of the things we do in the engagement and cultivation and contribution to these networks is you also get to own and decide what is going to be in these public spaces and what you would prefer to have behind the firewall of the learning management system. The other assessment types, there's a team assignment that will be part of every course. It is part of every course. Where it falls in the 9-week course structure depends on the content and instruction, but you will be working in teams in every course until you get to the final exit pathways at the master's level. And those team assignments are very rich because you're getting that cross-sectoral, or in academic speak, the interdisciplinarity. That took some practice to roll off the tongue. You're getting all of that cross-pollination. And what people find is that things that they assumed were very unique to their sector actually have many common underpinnings with other issues, challenges, and opportunities in other sectors. And there's quite a bit of that learning that happens in the team spaces. There also, of course, are individual assignments. There will be papers. It is an academic program, so you will be held to your writing. And predominantly, well, we use APA as the format and style guide, but the focus of the writing is really on, certainly at the graduate level in all 4 of the options, being able to critically, in a positive way, not critique as negative, critique as critically support your thinking. And so really getting into, what does it mean to write an academic paragraph? What does it mean to really support your position and your points of view with evidence? And how do you do that? And at Royal Roads, we have the most wonderful, wonderful writing center and support for people in their writing journey. I know often because people that are attracted to these programs and our general student population in the master's graduate level is mid-career adult learners. We do a lot of writing. I would put myself in that category. We do a lot of writing every day that is just practical, pragmatic writing. Here's what you need to know to do the thing. That's not academic writing. And so, and so when you put that academic writing hat on, it's absolutely common for people to have a bit of an imposter syndrome. What am I doing here? What, can I actually really do this? What do you mean I have to think about my thinking, and why I think that about my thinking? And so please know that the Writing Center is there to support you, as are your faculty and colleagues. But I know often the initial, for many, the initial fear is, I don't know, I haven't done academic writing in a long time. And so know that that's a common sort of breath in, and that there's support there for you for that. You'll also see self and peer assessments, especially as you're moving through the program. Thank you, Lisa, for all these resources you're putting in the chat. The peer and self-assessment pieces will be scaffolded. So you're moving, you can think of at the beginning of the program, you're moving into these spaces, and by the end, you're developing your depth in your writing, your depth in your thinking. And so getting that peer and self-feedback is really important as you move forward. And then, of course, the reflections. So that's the 30,000-foot view of evaluation. Let's get into the details about these different programs, because often we hear, what? There are 2 graduate diplomas and they have sort of different names, and what did they cover? And so I'm hoping we can talk through that and figure out, what do these things actually cover, and find the one that's a fit for you in your setting. I put this, I asked Selena to leave this in actually, because I think this, everyone who's here probably already realizes that this skill set has been amplified tremendously as a result of the current pandemic climate that we're living in. This information was prior to the pandemic, and the role of an instructional designer at that time was the 38th best job in America, predominantly North American focused, US based, but we see this in Canada as well. And so if you're, you're wondering why would I get into this space? Most people I talk about in this space can't even describe what they do. I know my family still doesn't know what I do. And so this is an important piece, right? That it's the intersection between the best that we know about learning, about adult learning, and what we know as technology is so rapidly evolving, about where those intersections can meet, what support is required as a result of that for learners, for facilitators, for administrators, decision makers, and then having someone who has that ability to not just code the course in Moodle, but to be the translator between the learning and the tech, between the executive decision makers and the learning and the tech, and be able to be the one that continues to amplify and extend the relative importance for things like a digital transformation agenda or a learning and development strategy. There are some predictions here. If you haven't seen Tony Bates's work, I highly recommend reading it. He's a Canadian gem, has been in this space for a long time and seen many shifts. And he did a really nice piece around policy implications around the online and hybrid learning space, sort of about April, May, I would say, if I remember correctly. And one of the things he calls for is investment in people with these skills and abilities and competencies in order to help our organizations as we move forward. So I'll encourage that. So let's get into this. There's not really a ladder, but we're going to pretend there's a ladder. So the graduate certificate in instructional design, this is the composition of it. So you can see the topics of the courses, as well as the length and the number of credits. All of the courses start with these preparatory pieces. So one of them is institutional based, and that's the academic integrity piece. And one is something that we do at our school, and it's called the link. And the real intention of that link experience is both to introduce you to the nuts and bolts of what the space you'll be learning in, but most importantly, introduce you to each other and start to really build that sense of community and connection, and commonalities and areas where there's differences. And so the real focus there is on building relationships and, figuring out how to use Collaborator, Moodle, or WordPress, or all those things as well. But the intention is really about relationships, because that's what we hear from our students in program, as well as our graduates from the program, that it is the connection and relationship that they develop over the course of the program that really is one of the rich takeaways for them. So this certificate, I'm just going to move it out of the way. One of the things to note, it's probably one of the more nitty-gritty is the wrong word, but I'll use that for now. Granular, perhaps, because you're focused in on very specific areas. So graphic design for instructional designers, and this is really looking at, it's taught by someone who is a graphics designer and an instructional designer. And it's really examining the principles of graphic design, usability, user interface design, and your role as an instructional designer. So for many, your role as an instructional designer might be up here and you are letting other people do this good work. But to be able to be aware of some of those decisions they have to make then allows you to be more effective and efficient in how you're managing or creating projects in these spaces. The next course is, the other two courses actually, are interesting courses in the sense that there's a lot to put into these little courses. Each course, with the exception of the grade ones, the introductory preparatory courses, each course is 9 weeks long. And so this is something that for some people are like, oh, okay, that's different. It's not semestered. So it's 9 weeks, then there's a break of about a week, and then you start your next one for 9 weeks. They are all 3-credit courses. So roughly a 3-credit course, because I always get asked this, is roughly 99 hours level of effort. So you're supposed to, with the readings, the activities, and the independent work, and the teamwork, and all that good stuff, you're roughly looking at about 99 hours. So then people who have that mathematical inclination will say, oh, okay, 9 weeks, 99 hours. So we're looking at about, 10 hours-ish a week. Yes. And what we hear from students is, yes, for some, absolutely. That is what they can do, and it's what they're able to do, and still have the richness that they like to experience from the course. For many more, what we hear is it's more than that, because they get into something. They get down a rabbit hole in the research. They get into the team project that they're working on, and it spins off into something else they want to do. And so there's been a really lovely webinar done, and Selena, perhaps we can send it out as well, the link. 3 of our current students who are just finishing talking about the experience of learning at a graduate level, sort of during the pandemic, and juggling work and doing all these things. And they really are, it's lovely. They're very authentic. They talk about the ways that they've done time management and how they've tried to create brackets of time to do this work. where they've had to have some give and take. So it's definitely worth listening to. But I would say generally people spend at minimum 10 a week, probably more towards 15. And it really kind of depends when. The courses do sort of set themselves up to have weekly on the Monday, you'll get something from the instructor, a video message, there might be a synchronous session, there might be an asynchronous message, and that sort of starts the week. And then the next Monday, you'll get the next one that starts the week. When you do the work in the week is up to you. If you are a 4 a.m. person, God love you, that might be your time. Some people do a little bit each day and then fly at it for a day on the weekend. Where you will have a little less control over that is when you're doing the teamwork part of the course. So whatever that team assignment is, wherever it is, you're now working with 4, maybe 5 other people that have different schedules and logistics to coordinate. Some people work in their teams asynchronously. Some people need to meet only synchronously. You get to decide all of that as a team. And Royal Roads has a fabulous virtual team coaching. Well, I wanted to say curriculum. It's not a curriculum, but resources. There's so many of them. And we also have a team coach for the School of Education and Technology and for our program. And so they are interwoven throughout the courses at different points to provide scaffolding and support. They're always there if there's any kind of team issue that they can work with you on. And it's just a lovely addition to also being able to be in this space and know that you have the support of working in a virtual team together. So with respect to these last 2 courses, sorry, Selena, I'm just going to go back 1 second. I didn't get sort of sidetracked. It was all relevant. The project management for instructional designers, that course attempts to take the entire body of project management literature and some of what we know about working as an instructional designer around working with SMEs, working on projects, financial planning, all those things, and smush them together. So it's a very full course. The other one, instructional design for technology mediated learning, takes all of the goodness that we know about learning and all of the instructional design approaches that have evolved since the early 1900s and smash those together. So again, very full course. So this certificate starts with something that's quite doing. There's a lot of practicality to it, right? Graphics design, here is the structures, and then slowly moves through a certificate to sort of a much wider 30,000-foot view of things. Often we see people take the certificate as a way to test the waters. This is interesting to me. I would like to know this content. I'd like to get deeper in these areas. And I'm not sure I'm interested in doing more at the graduate level, but this might, I'm not sure. So many people enter here, do their certificate, and then either go on to do a diploma or continue on and do their master's. So there is that option to do that. Okay, Selena, I'm ready now. Thank you. I think we've spoken, or you've heard me speak a little bit about why. And as we move into the MALAT suite, so I know the acronyms are only for us. For you, they're just one more set of acronyms. So as we move into the learning and technology piece, that's where this second bullet really comes in. So that focus is on network learning, openness, and a digital mindset. And that is, there's no course on that within the MALAT or the Diplat. It's woven throughout, and it's woven throughout in a variety of ways, which we'll speak to. Okay, Selena, thank you. So the graduate certificate in instructional design can then you can move from there into this thing called technology enhanced learning design, and it's a graduate diploma. And it has the addition of these 3 courses in it. These 3 courses are the same courses. You take them with people who are in the Masters of Learning and Technology or the Diploma in Learning and Technology. So these aren't separate just for you instances. They're ones where you're going to be with these other audiences as well. So you'll have this graduate certificate in instructional design, and then you'll move to the graduate diploma in technology enhanced learning, so different name. And these are the 3 courses that make up the rest of it. These 3 courses you can see right now. You can get in them. They're all of the LRNT courses are open. They're all in WordPress. They have a companion Moodle shell, which we use for, in some cases, instructors would like to have, look back to my research point earlier, they'd like to have an activity that's behind a firewall and not on a public site or on a public blog. And so the companion Moodle shell is used that way. You need a place to upload assignments. You upload in the companion Moodle shell. But with respect to what's in the course, the readings, the assignments, the descriptions, the rubrics, you can access all of these right now. And we can put a link to the MALAT program page there so you can be able to see it. And you'll see a screenshot of it in a bit. So that's the graduate certificate in instructional design, the TL column, those 3 courses. And then if you'd like to continue and do the diploma, the graduate diploma in technology enhanced learning, these are the other 3 courses you would take and their focus. So 523 is exactly what it says. It's all about what do we know about learning and technologies and what are some of the myths, like learning style. 524 is about innovation, design, and learning. So what are some of the models for learning design? What are more contemporary models for learning design? And you'll dive in and get into things like human-centered design, agile design, those types of sprint design models, just that piece of it. And then 525, I think for me, looking programmatically, this is one of the exciting courses. I mean, they're all exciting, but this one's particularly exciting because it takes the role of the instructional designer, ed tech, learning scientist, however you want to frame that role. And it takes it from being that person that just is in the office down the hall behind a door coding, or the perception of that person being in the office down the hall, and it puts them in this leadership role. And it puts them at the table to have conversations around leading change in digital learning. And increasingly, we're seeing that as a role that's just continuing to be amplified and much needed in all sectors. So this course starts to get into that. I'm going to stop there. Please type questions in the chat. As you can tell, I can just keep going. So please don't hesitate to type questions in there. Selena, if you could switch us to the next slide, that would be great. Thank you. I'm going to move us past this one so we can get it, just because I think we've rambled on about it. I've rambled on. So this is the Masters of Arts and the Graduate Diploma in Learning and Technology. And at the top in the gray, you have those preparatory courses, same. And then in the next box down where it says GD Learning and Technology, this is that Graduate Diploma in Learning and Technology. So you can see that here, the previous graduate diploma had the instructional design certificate courses and then 3 of these courses. This one doesn't have those instructional design certificate courses. It has 3 different ones. It has digital learning environments, network and communities, intro to research, critical reading and writing, and then it gets into the foundation. And the 3rd one that's different is the inquiry into contemporary issues. So, and Selena, I'm just noticing, I think what would maybe be helpful for folks when we can make the edit is to add in the course codes, not that, just because it helps them see the numbers are different. So the technology enhanced learning and design, you get the graduate certificate courses and then 3 of what's in the master's. In this diploma, the Diploma of Learning and Technology, the ones in that lighter blue colored box are the diploma courses. You are taking them along with the Masters of Arts in Learning and Technology students. In the master's program, you're going to work your way down those foundational courses. And then you have 3 exit pathway options. So you can do a traditional master's thesis where you're doing advanced, or you're doing primary data collection. You're actually interviewing, focus grouping, surveying, talking to other people. And that's governed by the Railroad's thesis process, which you can read all about on the Railroad's website. It's very thorough. You can also see all of the handbooks for these exit pathways on the MALAT program page, which Lisa has put in the chat for you. So you can see the course descriptions, you can get into the courses on that program page, and you can see all of the handbooks for those of you who like to really know what this thing is, which is important, then you can take a look. The other 2 pathways, so in the thesis path, you take all the foundation courses in the master's, Then you take an advanced research course where you build out your thesis proposal, and then you do your thesis, and you're working one-on-one with the thesis supervisor. The thesis is an application-based pathway. The applications are adjudicated by a committee, and not all who apply are accepted. Having said that, we generally have, if you had a cohort of sort of 20, we generally have about 5 applications out of that 20 to a thesis pathway, and maybe 3 would be accepted. Nadine has a great question about, do you have to have a basic to intermediate knowledge about software? We're often asked this, and I would say you have to have a willingness to learn and a level of comfort with learning technology, but we don't use any particular software. So you're going to be using Word, probably Google Docs. You'll probably use Google Drive in some of your team assignments. You might use Google Slides. You might use PowerPoint. Some people on your team might say, hey, we use Mural. Can I teach you how to use Mural? And the team will decide, yeah, let's use Mural for this. And they'll teach you that. So having that openness. Some people probably would choose to do Captivate, but often they then need a way to share it more publicly. And so it just depends where your team ends up going. As you take on your assignments, absolutely, you can also use whatever tools you're comfortable with and at your disposal. So what we find is that many of the students, because of their cross-sectoral nature, they're bringing all kinds of tools, technology tools, to the table that then get shared as sort of that hidden curriculum almost throughout the program as you're working in different groups and different teams. So just jumping back to the master's program now and the other 2 pathways, the applied research project or the digital learning consulting project, for those you take another 3 additional courses, and they're there below. You take one about creating digital resources, facilitating in digital environments, and then your advanced research course where you're creating your proposal. And then you go off and you do your applied research project or your consulting project. The applied research project is primarily secondary research. So you have your research question and you're looking out in the literature that would pertain to your question, and you're synthesizing all of that and coming back with recommendations around your question. You also have the ability to consult under course blanket ethics with up to 5 people in your organization. So this is a really good exit pathway for people that are beginning a project in sort of training and development language, you know, the needs assessment that never gets done or it always gets truncated because there's no time. This is where you would do that. This is a great opportunity to come to the table at the beginning of a project with, hey, this is what the research says about the topic that we're investigating or the thing we want to do. And based on that, here's the synthesis of it that's going to inform our work going forward. So that's one example. Some people have done policy studies, lots of different examples in there, and you can see those examples. The consulting project path is different in that you actually are building something. Some people have created a small online, we had one who did a small online safety thing for dental hygienists, safety online experience for dental hygienists. We've had some who've done some work in the culinary arts profession. So you're actually creating something, getting all the literature around what you're going to create to inform what you create, and then up to 10 people can consult with you either in the creation or the use, sort of a beta test of it, and you're writing up feedback and recommendations going forward. So a variety of different pathways there. Selena, we better. I'm watching my time as I ramble. See, this is dangerous. It's when Selena drives, it's, you know, I'm quiet longer. So this is the MALAT program page Lisa put in the chat. And this is where you can see the LRNT courses. So the red circle around them there, if you go to this program page, click on there, you'll get into the courses. Within the course, I would strongly encourage you, same on the right-hand side, there are all the student blogs of current students taking the courses. Get in there, see what they're doing, see what they've posted in their blogs. The work of the people that were in the well, in all the courses, but the leadership one stands out to me recently because it happened as the pandemic was being declared. And their change frameworks that they made for their organizations are phenomenal, and ones that you would read and go, oh, I could use a little bit of that, a little bit of that. So take some time. to take a look around in there. Under Toolkit at the top right, that's where you'll see all of the handbooks for the thesis, the applied research project, and the digital consulting project. So you'll see those there. This gives you a quick sense of the learning ecosystem. So there's the WordPress sites that I was mentioning, as well as the companion Moodle shell, and they're connected. So you will be between a couple of spaces. In the link, which is that preparatory course, if you're not familiar with Moodle, which is our learning management system at Royal Roads, there is activities to get you up to speed with Moodle as well as with WordPress. Okay. These are examples of some of the WordPress sites. Initially on the left, you'll get that nice white one that says welcome, and then you can see some of the current students as they've evolved over time. Many of the students choose, because of that open educational practices, if it works for them, many of them choose to Creative Commons license their sites, and you can see a little bit more on what that is if it's not familiar to you, or a virtual symposium presentation on it at the link there. Tony, great question around immersive learning and augmented reality. There is not a course on that, but there's space within the courses to dive into there more deeply. We actually have a current student right now looking at AR in the K-12 context as something they'd like to explore in their thesis. So there's space in there. The one course, the inquiry course, is one of the ones where you are actually, as part of the course, asked to go out and take another course in an open educational setting. And then you bring that back into your experience in the course. So there's spaces for that, but there isn't a particular course on it. So this slide outlines the laddering options. So all of those acronyms, Selena has done a great job of showing their progression. And the graduate certificate, as you move forward into the DipTel, depending, as I mentioned, many people start with the graduate certificate and then move on to the diploma and then move on to the master's. So there always is that option as well. And you have the ability to take the courses, once you're in the graduate certificate, for example, they have their spacing and sort of flow to them. But one thing that I always mention to people is we also, as Royal Roads has been doing this for over 25 years, we understand that when you're mid-career and you're an adult learner and life is busy and, oh, now you're in a pandemic situation, life can get in the way. And sometimes, and that's okay. And so there are ways and mechanisms to step away if you need some space and then step back in. And I think that's, it's really important. It's something that when we kick off the programs, I also remind people of, because it's not our natural inclination to think that way. But it's really important to know that there are supports there to take some time back and step back without having to just step away completely and then go back through the application process. So I think it's important to know that there are those points along the way. Selena? Oh, this is the last, well, I don't know if this is my last blip, but hopefully. One of the things with the Masters in Learning and Technology is it kicks off with a virtual symposium. And so if you click on the link when the slide gets to you, it will take you to the virtual symposium. This will be the 5th year. So there's 4 years of an online conference. All the sessions are recorded, they're Creative Commons licensed and shareable. So there's 4 years of professional development just at your fingertips. If you would like to dip in, please do. Please share the link to your colleagues and your network. The more the merrier in these conversations. There are 3 tracks to the symposium. One is sort of experts from the field. One is stories from the field, people actually doing this work. We've had people present on work they've been doing in New Zealand, within international settings, within their local districts, within their work environment. So they're really rich discussions there. And then there's a student track. So every one of those exit pathways involves presenting in some way, shape, or form in the virtual symposium. The reason that I mention that is as you're looking at and making decisions between a diploma and a master's and what would the different exits look like, examples are there. So you can go and you can look and you can listen to people describe why they chose the thesis pathway and not the other, or why they chose the other pathway and what did they do. So you can find that there. And what is our next slide? There, see, I knew at some point you would be rid of me, but I think I do come back to say more at the end, but please jump in if you have questions, and as we go through, I can answer them.
Thanks so much, Elizabeth. We had some great questions coming in the chat box already. So we're gonna quickly stroll through the application process and requirements, but this is a great time to start popping those questions in as we're around the corner from our question and conversations. So to start us off, we always like to let you know what the admission criteria for these programs are. So here at Rural Roads, we have two different pathways, you can call it, our standard admissions and our flexible admissions. So standard admissions requires 4-year or comparable graduate degree in a related field from a recognized post-secondary institution, as well as at least 3 years of professional experience in a leadership or management position that is directly related to the outcomes of the program that you're interested in. So you can see the asterisks, the stars, beside words such as 3 years or experience in a leadership. If you head to our website, you can explore more, for example, of what leadership can mean for this program. So if you have any questions, head to our website, but also, as you may have noticed in our chat box, Lisa is here and always eager to answer any questions that could come up for you. Flexible admissions. So flexible admissions is sometimes looked at as the professional pathway as well. So it's for folks who may not have the traditional academic background, but have been working in the field for many, many years and have the experience and the know-how to gain a lot from this program, but also give a lot to your cohort members as well. So if you're looking at flexible admissions, you would normally require a minimum of 7 years of work experience, as well as a minimum of 2 years in professional experience in leadership or management positions that are again directly related to the outcomes of the program that you're interested in. So how to apply? This is the application process at a quick glance. So it begins with an online application that includes a fee of $126.28. And then we'll look at some supporting documents. So here is a great place for me to note that we aren't waiting, hoping for the documents to come in a pretty complete package. We really encourage our applicants to send things in as you have them completed and checked off your list. So our supporting documents include things such as your official transcripts, personal statement, detailed resume, and 2 letters of reference. Our website is a wonderful resource for learning more about these supporting documents. For example, we have some guiding questions around what should you be exploring in your personal statement? What do we want to know? For the detailed resume, we have some tips and tricks as to how this document can be structured to ensure all of your achievements shine bright. And then some submission information for things like your official transcripts, as well as your 2 letters of reference. So upcoming intakes. This slide is a bit full, but bear with me. So for our Master of Arts and Graduate Diploma in Learning and Technology, we are around the corner from our start date. So that means our application deadline is a little bit sooner. So if you're looking at starting that Master of Arts or Graduate Diploma in Learning and Technology, our intake begins March 29th, 2021, putting its application deadline December 29th, 2020. If you're planning a little further out, we do have our 2022 deadline posted as well, and that would begin March 29th, 2022, putting the application deadline at December 28th, 2021. If you're interested in our Graduate Diploma in Technology Enhanced Learning and Design, as well as our Graduate Certificate in Instructional Design, they begin even sooner. So you'll start those programs January 18th, 2021, putting its application deadline as December 1st, 2020. Again, if you're looking a little further out, we do have our 2022 dates posted for those as well. And that puts us at January 17th, 2022, with an application deadline of October 17th, 2021. We'd like to note that here at Rural Roads, we do something called rolling admissions. So that means that as applications come to our offices, your online application is processed, a majority of your supporting documents are in, we begin to adjudicate your file. Once your file is adjudicated, we let you know about your seat in the program. So we're not actually going to wait until December 29th, 2020 to look at all the applications that came in and then start the adjudication process and let you know. So if there is an intake that you're interested in, if that's that 2021 time slot or 2022, we recommend getting your application in sooner than later to ensure you have a seat in the intake that works best for you. Financial aid, a question that's on many of our students' mind, and a few folks when registering asked to learn more about what we can offer here at Railroads University. So here on our campus, we have a wonderful team of financial aid and award specialists who have their fingertips on internal but also external resources that could be available to you. So they can tell you a little bit more about loans, awards, research scholarships, or other types of funding as well. So we always recommend connecting with this office, as you never know what could be available to you. We've noted their website as well as their direct phone lines as well. And if I'm reading Lisa's mind, she will likely post a link to their blog as well. And the blog's a great place to find more information about what they can provide. Speaking of Lisa, Lisa is one of the beautiful examples of the enrollment teams that we have here on our campus who are eager to chat with you. So if you'd like to connect with Lisa and her team to learn about any of the programs we talked about today, or others on our campus as well, you can find her at learn.more@royalroads.ca. If you're joining us internationally, our international admissions and registration team would be more than happy to continue the conversation. And you can find them at learn.more.international@royalroads.ca. And one more throw to our virtual symposium. This is such an exciting opportunity to get to take part in events that are happening live this coming year, but also Elizabeth has provided such a wonderful framework to be able to peek in and look at years past as well. So it is very cool. We have the access link right there for you, but again, it'll be included in our follow-up communications as well. And that brings us to the end of the slide deck today, but that signals the start of our question and conversation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing the slides now and turn my attention to the chat box. I'm seeing lots of back and forth. So big thank you to Lisa and Elizabeth for popping in there already. Okay, so I'm going to take a quick scroll up and hopefully answer all the questions that came up. Early on, we did have a question, I believe from Tony. Elizabeth, talking about the instructional design at the time being the 38th job in North America. So they were also wondering about the rank of college professor on that list and wondered if you had a link to share.
I don't have the rank of college professor on that list, but I can get you the link of where that data came from. It was an article that was published, let me think of it now. I want to say higher ed, but I'm not sure. But I definitely can get you the link for that. I know what we've been seeing even pre-pandemic, for example, in the States, universities were hiring, there was a call out at one point for 40 instructional designers from one higher ed institution, which we haven't seen in the field. Well, I haven't seen in the field in the past 30 years, and colleagues would say the same. So we're definitely seeing growth in the field, but I can get you the link to that and send it to Selena, so when it goes out, it can go out to everybody.
Absolutely. And noting that, yes, we will absolutely send the recording of today's session, as well as all of these wonderful links that have been provided in our chat box. So if there are any folks that need to pop off as we've hit 1 p.m., please do feel free to pop your questions in the chat box before you go, and we'll get to them so they're included in the recording. So with that, we'll pop back into the chat box. We had a question here, Elizabeth, about, is this program available for international students?
Yes, absolutely. And I think we've got the link to the international office that you can talk to. One of the things we have found is we've had every cohort, we have usually 1 or 2 from China. And one of the things we found is sometimes the technology, because of the different firewalls, it's just challenging for them. Having said that, we do have, I'm thinking of the most recent cohort, there's 2 women that are in that situation, and they've managed to find workarounds. Generally, the workaround is with their own private VPN or a variety. But where they see it really impacting, having talked to them, is when they work with their teams, because they can't always be as rapid response as you need to be in some of the time assignments. Not that you have to be within the hour, but if they're having trouble getting in after a day and a half, then chances are the team conversation has moved on about where the direction the assignment is going. So that's one of the pieces of feedback. I mean, we do work at Royal Roads with the Center of Teaching and Educational Technologies. In partner, we have programs that we deliver in China. And so we do work with them to help any students who are in that sort of space where they need a little extra, not connecting. But it has been something that has come up as being not limiting so far, but frustrating.
Noted. Okay, thanks so much, Elizabeth. We had a question here about, so if the MA takes us 3 years, is that okay?
Yes, so that's sort of what I was alluding to with the different leave of absences that are available as things come up. I think the part where people get stuck on is the 2 years, right? And then you're with your cohort and you build so many rich connections there that you want to convocate together, you want to finish together. But sometimes life has different plans for you. And so you have to take that step away. And what it means is, yes, you will finish. If you work at it, you will finish when you are able to come back, but it might not be at the same time as the people that you started with. And so for some people, that's a decision factor for them to consider, for sure.
Touching more on the flexibility of these programs, we have Michelle wondering about general studies. So if I'm correct, it's the graduate certificate and instructional design courses that can be taken as general studies, though the courses that are embedded in MALAT and the other diplomas are in a group.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And then Nadine, I see your comment in the chat about, having that you've graduated with your bachelor's in 2007, you've been working in IT. So take a look at what counts as leadership and management experience on the application form, because what the adjudication committee is looking for in your file is a demonstration that you have been moving into more of these leadership or management roles. Maybe you've been managing a small team working on some of your IT projects. Maybe some of your IT projects have involved training, quote unquote, others in order to execute the work. And so take a look on the website around what leadership and management means, because often what we find is that in your day-to-day job of doing your work, you actually are stepping more into those leadership spaces and leadership conversations. You're working at managing teams, you're working with others as they build their capacity. And so that can be used as part of your application submission. So I hope that helps with that question there. Michelle, you have a question. So the interesting thing about K-12 is what we've seen as the school evolved and now has a master's in educational leadership and management, which is focused on educational leadership and management. Many K-12 teachers, as they're moving to jump up to their next step and moving into a master's program, consider that one. And then those who do consider a master's in learning and technology have already sort of made that decision that they're not looking for the administrative track. They're not looking to be a principal or a vice principal. They're looking to deepen their space and their learning in these spaces. Maybe they end up being a resource support to their district around learning and technology. We've had several of those. So the distinction isn't not around interest, it's just around where people are choosing their next step in their career path.
We had a great question that was asked and answered, but I want to read it out in case anyone isn't able to view our chat box. So we had a question we had someone ask, I'm trying to cost out the MALAT year by year so I can maximize the PD funds I can use for my institution. Could you break down when the fees are due each term? And then Lisa provided some information and said, payment is typically due the month prior to each course starting. So look at the payment schedule alongside the program schedule to have an idea. And then provided a link to our financial aid office as well. So looking on our website, yes, you are able to see the cost schedule for each of these programs. And Lisa, that's a great little trick to break it down by term or course rather. Thanks so much. Looking into our chat box as once again. Oh, Lisa, thank you so much. So Lisa's provided a note here that we encourage applicants to chat with our amazing alumni who can share their ROU experience and how they are applying their learning. So if you're interested in chatting with an alumni from any of these programs, connect with Lisa at lisa.murray@rollroads.ca, and she's happy to make that happen.
You also might think about, and I put the link there again in my response to Michelle's, on the MALAT program page, when you go into any of the courses, their blogs are there, and you can also connect with them on their blogs. You could, just post a response to their blog, and you might find something that someone's doing that's really interesting that you want to learn more about, and that's another way to reach out, as well as through Lisa, of course. And Nadine, I'm glad that answers your questions. That's wonderful. Good.
And then a question about the transcripts. So if you already have a master's degree, and if I submit transcript from that one, will that be good enough? Or do we submit official transcripts if our application is considered? And Lisa let us know that you must submit transcripts from all post-secondary schools that you've attended. So thanks so much for the question as well as the clarification. And it looks like that may have brought us to the end of our questions today. We do have one more question regarding transcripts. That right now from Lebanon, it's quite difficult to have those certified and sent over. So please connect with our international office, learn.more.international@rollroads.ca, as our specialists with our international team are broken up by geographical sector. So you'll be able to speak with someone who works specifically with your area, and hopefully we'll have some information about how best to navigate that. So that now it looks like we're at the end of our questions. Feel free if there's anything else to pop it in now. But otherwise, I would just like to extend a big thank you to everyone who joined our call live and for those who are watching the recording as well. Elizabeth, before I send the final words over to you, maybe you can send us off answering this last question. What types of people are generally attracted to each of the program options?
Oh, that's a good question. I think if we start sectorally, it's broad, it's all over. I would say in every program option, we have representation from every sector. If we move sort of down a little more granular, the graduate certificate in instructional design tends to be people who are working to support others in their learning design. So maybe at a teaching and learning center in a post-secondary environment, a resource colleague in K-12, a training coordinator, depending on how that's defined, in a corporate environment. So it tends to be people that are, either working to support or do that training design or learning design, and they haven't necessarily taken on larger projects. Or we have people who are doing all kinds of projects that a small little box on their Gantt chart says training, and they know nothing about it. And so this is their way to get in and figure out, okay, what are the learning theories? What's project management? How can we integrate all that together? So that would be the certificate in instructional design. The technology enabled learning, people that then choose to do that and go further are looking, they're generally people who either may be in this role already in some type of training or learning role. Some of them may have been there for quite some time, and this validates their experience in a very formal educational way. Others, they've been doing the work, but are looking to extend and maybe thinking they might do a master's down the road, but not sure. But the content is what they end up focusing on. They're really attracted by the course focus of those. For the master's degree, I would have said in the past, for many it was validating the work that they already do. But I think what we're seeing now is a bit more of a balance between both validating work that is already done and deepening their practice with respect to a research lens on it, right? So they actually can stand behind what they do because they know that it's grounded in research-informed practice and in data-informed practice. So I think we're seeing much more of that. And then we're seeing this other group that this is brand new to them. They're either coming to this field brand new, like I gave the example of the electrical trades instructor, or they're making a career switch. So we have some who've been business analysts who are moving from that area of work in their company more into a training and development role. Or we have some, I'm thinking, some within D&D, for example, where now they are in a training officer role within Department of National Defense, and there is internal training for that role there, but there is also the opportunity to deepen that and to get into the literature, basically the promising practices that we're seeing in the research. So does that help answer that question a little bit?
I think so. I think so. Looking at the videos that we can see, I saw a few head nods. So thank you. Again, we are always happy to continue the conversation. So if after this session things are continuing to bubble, you peek back at the recording and you have some more questions, please feel free to hit reply on that follow-up email or connect directly with Elisa, Elizabeth, myself, and we are all happy to help. So with that, Elizabeth, was there anything you wanted to say to send us on our day?
Have a great rest of your day. For some of you, you're almost at the end. For others, I haven't done the quick time change from Lebanon, but I am sure it's early or very late. And some of us are off to a late lunch. So thank you for making time for this. It's always a pleasure to hear some of these questions come up. It gives me a little bit of a sense of where there's need in the field and how different programs might be a fit. So just do reach out if you have any other questions. Be happy to chat further. So thank you. Have a great rest of your day.